Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for more stories. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. I'm Jason Mallory, married to Monica Mallory, and we've got one daughter, Sophie, who's 20 and deep into her third year of college. People used to say we were that stable family in the neighborhood, like some Hallmark commercial that somehow crash-landed into real life. We had backyard BBQs where I pretended to be a semi-professional chef flipping burgers that could char themselves if left alone. We took those Instagram-perfect family trips every summer where everyone smiled just enough for the photos. And I worked my tail off so they didn't have to survive on instant noodles like I did, because obviously life without ramen is the true measure of love. Sophie and I were supposedly close. She'd call from school half laughing, half groaning, like her life depended on narrating the chaos of teenage drama. "Dad, you're not going to believe this," she'd say, like I had nothing better to do than care that someone wore socks with sandals. And naturally, I hung on every word, because who needs Netflix when you've got the riveting adventures of modern adolescence? I didn't think we were perfect, but I figured we were solid, like a sturdy IKEA table with all the screws tight solid. I trusted Monica too. Well, I thought I did. The house we lived in was my grandfather's, passed down to me long before Monica ever walked into my life. It had been in my family for decades, practically a family heirloom with a slightly eccentric paint color history. Every new coat of paint, every fix, I tackled myself. It was me showing love through power tools. That place wasn't just a house. It was part of who I was. A monument to hard work, patience, and occasional profanity when the paint wouldn't roll evenly. 3 months ago, I was on a short business trip. Supposed to be home Saturday, but the universe decided, nope, get home early, Jason. So, I wrapped things up Thursday afternoon and figured I'd surprise Monica. I even stopped by a florist on the way and grabbed red roses, her favorite. Corny, maybe. But after almost 19 years together, little surprises keep things alive, right? At least that's what I thought. I pulled up around 2:10 in the afternoon, feeling like the hero of a cheesy rom-com making a surprise entrance. Right away, I noticed a car parked out front that I didn't recognize. A charcoal gray crossover, tinted windows, the kind of car you see in crime documentaries or cheesy soap operas when someone's up to no good. My first thought was maybe Monica's sister or a friend had stopped by. Sure, because that's exactly what you do, drive a mysterious car and park it out front like you're auditioning for a mob movie. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I walked to the front door, something felt off. Muddy shoe prints on the steps, bigger than Monica's size. Great. Either Bigfoot had come for a visit, or someone who wasn't supposed to be there was making themselves right at home. I unlocked the door, walked in, and called out, "Honey, I'm home early," with the kind of fake cheer you only hear in old sitcoms. Nothing. Usually, she'd at least yell back from wherever she was, kitchen, living room, yoga mat, wherever. But the house was quiet. Too quiet. Except I thought I heard something faint upstairs. Perfect. The setup of every horror movie ever. I set the flowers down on the counter like some tragic prop and started heading up. As I reached the hallway, I heard it more clearly. Voices. A man's voice, and then Monica's laugh. Except it wasn't the usual casual laugh I'd heard for years. No, this was the kind of laugh you hear from a woman who's really enjoying herself. Like the kind of laugh she'd retired with me a decade ago. My stomach sank. Fantastic. The bedroom door was cracked open just slightly. I stopped and listened for a moment, heart pounding so hard I half expected them to hear it like a drum solo. Then the man's voice again, low and joking, followed by Monica saying, "Shoo, we'll get caught." Well, wasn't that considerate of her? That was enough. I pushed the door open, and the scene that burned into my head forever was right there in my own damn bedroom. Monica was on the bed with some guy I'd never seen before. He looked maybe late 30s, built like he actually had a life outside of my nightmare. Dark hair perfectly in place. Because, of course, even the guy crashing my marriage had to look like he was on a shampoo commercial. My bed. The bed where Monica and I slept, where Sophie used to crawl in after a nightmare clutching her stuffed bunny like some fragile diplomat, was now a grotesque display, a shrine to betrayal. Sheets half off, clothes thrown everywhere like the aftermath of a hurricane in a discount motel, like my life had been reduced to a punchline in some twisted sitcom. Monica gasped, scrambling, yanking the blanket around her like she'd just been exposed to a Category 5 hurricane of consequences. The guy? He lounged like he owned the place, smirking like this was a casual afternoon coffee break in my living room, holding up his hand as if I'd accidentally wandered into the wrong episode of some sad, twisted sitcom. "Relax, man," he said. "She's not happy with you anyway. We can explain." "Explain? Oh, sure. Please do enlighten me." "Explain what exactly?" "That my wife was cheating with some stranger in my house, on my bed, in broad daylight, while I was out working my butt off to keep this life from collapsing into garbage. Perfectly rational behavior. Totally normal. Absolutely nothing wrong here. I don't even remember deciding to move. One second I was standing there, the next it felt like I'd been edited into an action flick. I grabbed him by the shoulders, and everything else went cinematic. A quick, brutal twist, footsteps tapping the floor like a drum beat, and us sliding into the wall in perfect choreography. The picture frame didn't just fall at pirouette off the hook like a prop in a stunt rehearsal. He tried to shove me back, all elbows and entitlement, like he'd signed up for a polite brawl. Classic mistake. I used his shove to spin him off balance with a slick turn, and came back with a punch that landed with exaggerated oomph like the sound guy had a field day. Another one followed, perfectly timed, and his nose started bleeding in that dramatic way the movies love: slow, unavoidable, a crimson ribbon that made him look suddenly tragic and ridiculous at once. His face froze in that stunned slow-mo expression you only see when the stunt doubles forget their cues, as if he'd sincerely expected to be complimented for his audacity. Monica was screaming, clawing at my arm, yelling for me to stop. "Jason, stop. What are you doing?" she cried. But all I could see was this stranger in my bedroom acting like he belonged, like I was the problem. I finally stopped when he started crying, his big tough guy act collapsing faster than a cheap IKEA shelf, begging for mercy like he was auditioning for a tragic soap opera. My head cleared for a second. Miracle of miracles. And I stepped back. "You've got 7 minutes to get the hell out before I call the cops," I said like I was negotiating with a particularly pathetic villain. He didn't say a word. Of course, he didn't. He just scrambled around, grabbed his pants, and stumbled out half-dressed, still bleeding like some extra in a low-budget action flick. Monica ran after him, calling his name. "Brandon! Brandon!" she yelled like it was the most natural thing in the world. Brandon. That would be his name. Fantastic. And then I was just standing there in the middle of the wrecked bed, a scene that looked like a hurricane had met a frat party. My flowers still sitting downstairs like a sad, unsuspecting peace offering. Roses mingling with the stench of sweat, betrayal, and poor life choices. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. I didn't stick around to beg or argue. Once Brandon bolted and Monica went running after him, I stood in that disaster zone and made myself a promise. I wasn't going to grovel. I wasn't going to curl into a corner and wonder what I did wrong. I knew damn well what happened. She disrespected me in my house, in my bed, and apparently thought she could play the victim at the same time. I grabbed my keys, went downstairs, and left the flowers sitting right there on the counter, waiting for someone who didn't deserve them. The first night, I stayed with a buddy across town. Didn't want to give Monica the satisfaction of me sulking in a hotel like some loser. Thank you very much. But I knew the parade would come back. Sure enough, later that night, my phone lit up with missed calls. Her sister's number, then Sophie's. Of course, I didn't answer. Who wants to deal with a live wire when your life's already exploding? When I finally called Monica the next day, she didn't waste any time. No softening. No, let's talk this through. Just straight up verbal artillery. You're insane. You attacked him. You could have killed him. I can't believe I've lived with a violent man for this long. She yelled like she was narrating a thriller instead of recounting her own mid-afternoon soap opera. I laughed into the phone. Violent man? Really? Monica? He was in my bed. Monica, he's lucky I didn't bury him in the backyard. She didn't even pause to digest, that just hung up. A few hours later, Sophie called. At first, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she'd hear me out. Maybe she'd get that I wasn't auditioning for the role of villain dad in a Lifetime movie. Nope. She had already been spoon-fed Mom's version. Dad, how could you? Mom told me everything. You beat some guy half to death because you couldn't control your temper. I can't believe you're my father. She said like she was reading off a script written by a particularly dramatic playwright. Ouch. Not because I thought she was right, but because I realized how fast she picked sides. No hesitation, no questions. No, hey, Dad, what actually happened? Just blind loyalty to her mom. I tried. I really did. Sophie, the guy wasn't some innocent stranger. He walked into our house like he owned it. He was a homewrecker. Our homewrecker, I explained, voice flat with disbelief. But she didn't want to hear it, so I hung up. 3 days later, I drove back to the house to grab a few things. Clothes, tools, some documents I kept in the study. I figured it would be a quick in and out like a normal person retrieving their stuff. That's when I heard the knock. 2 cops standing there like they were about to serve me tea. "Mr. Mallory, you're under arrest for assault," one said, all business. Assault in my own bedroom. I actually laughed. Really, I did. Didn't matter. They cuffed me right there on my lawn in full view of the neighborhood audience. Mrs. Delgado across the street was peeking through her blinds like it was the best episode of reality TV she'd seen all week. Another guy I barely knew was standing in his driveway, shaking his head like I'd just been caught dealing something illegal out of the trunk of my car. And there I was, standing in my own damn yard, cuffs digging in, getting shoved into a squad car, all because I dared to defend my house. Jail wasn't cinematic. No slow-motion stares, no triumphant background score, just cold, awful-smelling walls, a metal bench that clearly hadn't been designed for comfort, and zero sleep. But I didn't break down crying. I just sat there thinking about how I'd gotten here. Not from losing control, not from being reckless, but from being married to a woman who couldn't stay loyal and was now spinning the story to make me the villain. By morning, my lawyer had arranged bail, and I was out. He shook his head as he read the charges. "Third-degree assault could be worse," he said. "Could be a felony." I shrugged. "Brandon's nose isn't worth a felony," I said, because honestly, it wasn't. He smirked like he wasn't supposed to agree, but did anyway. Walking into work after that was its own special kind of punishment. I'd been with the same company for 13 years, built a reputation as a reliable guy, someone clients could actually trust. Now, apparently, I was the star of the latest neighborhood drama. The receptionist couldn't even look me in the eye, probably imagining I was the lead in some Lifetime movie about domestic violence. My boss called me into his office, closed the door like he was about to deliver some tragic verdict. "Look, I believe you," he said. "But clients are asking questions. If this turns into a conviction, we'll have to talk about your future here." Future here? Fantastic. I hadn't done anything wrong except defend myself and my home. Yet somehow, my livelihood was hanging by a thread because Monica decided to turn our life into a soap opera. That night, I drove back to the house. The locks had already been changed. My key didn't work. Perfect. I even noticed a patrol car lazily cruising down the block while neighbors peeked out, probably betting on whether I'd throw a tantrum. Message was loud and clear. Not welcome in my own home. My lawyer called. "Monica filed for a temporary restraining order," he said, voice carefully neutral. "She says you're a danger to her. She's scared you might hurt her." Absolute lies. Never laid a hand on her. Never even raised my voice in a way that could be considered threatening. Yet now, in some twisted paperwork reality, I was the villain. Some kind of abusive monster. So, I checked into a hotel. Same suitcase I brought from the business trip. Hadn't even unpacked it. That was my glamorous new life. Paying for a hotel, paying for bail, paying for a lawyer. Meanwhile, Monica was living it up in my house, eating from my fridge, watching my TV, probably with Brandon visiting whenever he wanted. My first instinct was to kick the damn door in. It's my house. My name's on the deed. Always has been. But with that restraining order hanging over me, I knew exactly how it would play out. Cops wouldn't care whose name was on the paperwork. They'd haul me off again and tell me to take it up in court. So, I played it smart. I walked away and got a hotel instead. Better to lose a few nights of sleep than hand them more ammo against me. Sophie texted again. Shorter this time. "You need help, Dad. Get anger management. Don't contact me until you do." I stared at the screen like it had personally offended me. Anger management. Me. I've spent decades without a single fight, keeping my head down, minding my tools and my lawnmower. Never hit her, never hit Sophie. Never hit anyone until the moment I found another man in my bed. That wasn't an anger problem. That was called being human. And apparently, according to an alternate universe script, it's also grounds for a mandatory personality transplant. So now the cast had been assigned. Monica, the traumatized heroine. Sophie, the beautiful eyewitness to the narrative. Brandon, the innocent wounded civilian. And me, the dangerous man who'd lost control. Funny thing is, I didn't feel out of control. Not then, not now. I felt clear, oddly efficient. I knew what had to be done, and I wasn't going to roll over just because Monica and her midday fling thought they could rewrite the script. This was round one, and I wasn't planning on losing. The hearing for the restraining order came quicker than I expected. 3 weeks of living out of a suitcase, paying for a hotel I didn't want, waiting for my chance to step back into my own house like I belonged there. My lawyer told me to keep my head down, stay calm, and let him handle the talking. Judges respect the guy who plays it cool, he said. Fine by me. I knew the truth, and I wasn't about to crawl on my hands and knees to a cheater just to get a pat on the head from the system. We walked into the courthouse. Monica was already there at the petitioner's table, dressed in her best sad wife ensemble black cardigan, eyes wide looking like she'd just survived a tragic indie film. Right beside her, Sophie, my daughter, arms crossed, glaring at me like I'd just been cast as the villain in some Lifetime thriller. That cut deeper than any punch I'd ever taken. The judge came in, called us to order, and Monica's lawyer didn't waste a second. Your Honor, my client has been living in fear for years. This man is controlling, manipulative, prone to violent outbursts. The attack 10 days ago was just the latest in a long history of abusive behavior. I sat there stone-faced, no shaking my head, no blurting out. Let them talk. My lawyer had drilled it into me. Once you look rattled, the judge starts believing the other side. Monica really put on a show. How she had no freedom. How she lived in constant fear. How she was even scared I might hurt Sophie. That one made my blood boil. But I kept my arms folded and waited, counting ceiling tiles like a monk in training. Then came the part one didn't expect. The bailiff called Sophie to the stand. My own daughter. I watched her walk up there, avoiding my eyes the entire time. She started parroting her mom's story like she'd been rehearsing it in front of a mirror for weeks. Growing up, Dad was controlling. He always wanted to know where I was, who I was with. He checked my messages, my emails. I was scared to make him angry. Scared of me. Scared of me. I was the guy who worked double shifts to pay for her soccer camps, who sat through 3-hour band concerts just to clap for her flute solo. Now, suddenly, I was the monster under her bed. When it was my lawyer's turn, he didn't waste a second. He leaned on the podium and looked Sophie dead in the eye, like a cat silently judging a particularly foolish mouse. Sophie, has your father ever hit you? No, she muttered, barely audible. Has your father ever hit your mother? No, she said again, shrinking into the chair like she'd just realized the furniture was judging her, too. Can you give a single specific example of him threatening either of you? Silence. Perfect. My lawyer smirked like a villain in reverse. If you can't provide a single real incident, then what you're describing is parenting, not abuse. Sophie looked small, practically microscopic in that chair. She couldn't come up with anything solid because, surprise, there wasn't anything. Then my lawyer pulled the ace from his pocket. Your Honor, while opposing counsel claims my client is unstable, I'd like to present financial records that give context to what actually happened in that house. He laid down a folder so thick it could have doubled as a doorstop. Credit card statements, bank records, phone logs, 9 months' worth of evidence that might as well have come with a neon sign screaming, "Look closer." Monica stiffened in her chair like a marionette with its strings suddenly cut. The judge flipped through them, eyes darting like a hawk on espresso. Line after line. Hotel charges, dinners for 2 at $300 a pop, jewelry stores, men's clothing boutiques. Your Honor, my lawyer said, voice calm but deadly. This wasn't one mistake. This was a sustained affair funded with marital money hidden from my client while he worked to support this family. Notice the phone logs hundreds of calls to one number. That number belongs to Brandon Keller. The judge raised an eyebrow. Brandon, the same man from the incident? Yes, my lawyer said, sliding over the receipts with Brandon's name on the reservations. Some even had his driver's license copied for check-in. It was airtight. The courtroom settled into an expectant silence as my lawyer stood again, leaning on the podium with that calm, "I've got this" energy. Your Honor, he said, I'd like to request a cross-examination of the petitioner. The judge glanced over his glasses and nodded. Granted. Monica straightened in her chair, arms crossed, glaring like I was a bug about to be squashed. My lawyer turned his attention to her, voice steady and deliberate. Mrs. Mallory, why did you file for a restraining order against my client? I feared for my life, she said, voice quivering like she'd just swallowed a lemon whole. Fearing for your life, my lawyer repeated, nodding slowly. And what specifically triggered Mr. Mallory's so-called outburst? Monica hesitated. Silence stretched in the courtroom, heavy and uncomfortable, the kind that makes even the bailiff shift in his seat. My lawyer leaned in slightly, voice sharp but controlled. Your Honor, the petitioner was caught red-handed, engaging in an affair with another man inside her husband's home, in his bed. He paused, letting the words sink in, then fixed the judge with a level stare. If Mr. Mallory truly posed a threat to Mrs. Mallory, why is she still unharmed? Why did he not lay a finger on her? The evidence shows she was never in danger of physical violence. This restraining order was filed with malicious intent to punish a husband who defended his home and expose him to public humiliation. The room stayed silent for a beat, the tension hanging thick, while Monica's expression wavered, caught somewhere between indignation and surprise. My lawyer sat back slightly, satisfied, letting the truth land without embellishment. I sat there with my arms crossed, enjoying the view of Monica squirming like a cat forced into a bathtub. Sophie shifted in her seat, too, clearly starting to realize that maybe Mom's version of events wasn't exactly National Geographic-level fact. When it was over, the judge leaned forward, all solemn and dramatic. Here's my ruling. The request for a permanent restraining order is denied, the judge said, adjusting his glasses and scanning the courtroom. While Mr. Mallory's actions against Mr. Keller were inappropriate, this court does not see a pattern of abuse toward his wife or daughter. It was an isolated incident born out of extraordinary circumstances. The situation, to be clear, was very critical. Any normal man placed in those circumstances could lose control, but that does not mean he has the right to break the law. That said, the evidence shows Mr. Mallory is not a threat to his wife or daughter. Therefore, the restraining order is hereby squashed. Bang! Just like that, the restraining order was gone. Monica froze mid-brief, her face a brilliant shade of scarlet rage. Sophie finally looked at me, eyes full of that confusing cocktail of anger, betrayal, and probably a dash of, oh crap, Dad might actually be human. As the bailiff called the next case, my lawyer leaned toward me and whispered, "Told you play it cool. You win." Walking out of that courtroom, I didn't feel like a beaten man. I felt sharp, focused, like a knife freshly honed and ready for action. Sure, the locks on my house had already been changed, and my lawyer told me to hold off until the divorce orders were sorted, so I kept living out of that hotel a little longer. Monica glared daggers at me as I passed her in the hallway, lips pressed tight like she was trying to chew through steel. Sophie wouldn't even look me in the eye, probably trying to erase her father from memory for the next 10 minutes at least. Fine. They'd chosen their side. And me? I wasn't done. This was just the warm-up. About a month after the restraining order hearing, the divorce papers landed on my lawyer's desk like a bomb with a bow on it. Monica wasn't wasting any time. Alimony, half the house, half my retirement, half everything I'd worked my butt off for. Reading that list of demands, I almost laughed. Almost. If it hadn't been my life being dissected in court, I might have applauded the audacity. Her lawyer leaned forward, voice dripping with drama. Your Honor, my client has been living in fear for years. Mr. Mallory is a man with a history of violence who cannot be trusted with financial control. The judge raised an eyebrow. I folded my hands, calm as ever, and let out a dry laugh. So, punching a home wrecker in my bedroom now makes me a financial hazard. Her lawyer bristled. It's Exhibit A, Your Honor. A clear pattern of aggression and instability. I leaned back in my chair, voice calm, almost amused. Right? Because defending your home makes you a villain. Go on, build me into your big bad wolf. I'm listening. The judge cleared his throat, clearly trying not to smirk at the circus unfolding in front of him. My lawyer leaned forward, voice steady. Your Honor, this property was inherited by my client years before the marriage. We have the deed. We have the will. It is not marital property. Mrs. Mallory has no claim. Monica's lawyer shot back immediately, voice sharp. Objection. Improvements were made during the marriage. Surely that creates some entitlement. My lawyer didn't flinch. Your Honor, we have receipts. Kitchen remodel, basement, roof replacement all paid for by my client. The house itself remains inherited property, separate from marital assets. Monica's lawyer jumped up like a cat on a hot stove, flailing about improvements made during the marriage. My lawyer didn't even blink. He dropped a stack of receipts on the table, thick enough to pass for a small coffee table. Kitchen remodel, basement overhaul, roof replacement. Every dime I'd paid during the marriage. But even with marital money going into improvements, my lawyer continued, voice smooth. The house itself was inherited property. It remained separate. And compared to the thousands Monica had blown on hotels and jewelry for Brandon, the judge wasn't buying her financially dependent story. He flipped through the papers, peering over his glasses at her like a teacher catching a student in a fib. So far, I'm seeing a husband funding the maintenance of his own inherited property. Do you have anything concrete to show she invested? Silence. That's when Monica decided it was her moment to shine, standing up like she was about to accept an Oscar. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue and said, Your Honor, I gave up my career for this family. I sacrificed my future to support him and our daughter. Doesn't that count for something? I almost laughed out loud. Sacrificed her career, right? Sacrificed, or just found a more convenient hobby? My lawyer leaned in, sliding a folder across the table to the judge. Inside were emails Monica had sent her old coworkers and even a Facebook post from 4 years ago, all singing the same tune. Finally quit. I was tired of the politics and the stress. I'm done with office life for good. The judge raised an eyebrow. So you weren't forced to quit? Monica stammered, flailing slightly. I was under pressure. I couldn't handle dash. The judge cut her off, voice sharp. Mrs. Mallory, there's a difference between sacrifice and choice. This looks like choice. Her face turned crimson, and she went back to the tissue, dabbing furiously like she was in a daytime soap opera. Then my lawyer hit with the financial angle again, voice steady and deadly calm. Your Honor, opposing counsel is requesting spousal support. Yet Mrs. Mallory spent over $15,000 of marital funds on hotels, restaurants, and gifts for her affair partner. We have receipts. We also have phone records matching the transactions. This wasn't an isolated mistake. This was a lifestyle. The judge looked down at the paperwork, then back at Monica, and actually laughed out loud. Someone who spends $15,000 on hotels and jewelry for another man clearly knows how to handle money. You're not convincing me you were financially dependent, Mrs. Mallory. The courtroom went dead silent, except for the scribbling of the court reporter. Monica's lawyer shifted in his seat like he was suddenly attending a root canal instead of a divorce hearing. That's when Monica lost it entirely. This isn't fair. I gave him the best years of my life. He's heartless, Your Honor. Absolutely heartless. And then Sophie, apparently inspired by her mother's theatrics, stood up from the back, face twisted with rage. She shrieked, You're ruining her life. She deserves everything. The bailiff moved instantly. Sit down, young lady. Sophie slumped back in her seat, but not before shooting me a glare like I'd personally invented every injustice in the world. I didn't look away. Oh no. I wanted her to know I saw her, that I registered every melodramatic glance. When it was all said and done, the judge delivered the ruling. The house stayed with me. My retirement account stayed with me. My car mine. Monica got her car, her personal belongings, $25,000 from our joint savings, and $12,000 credited for minor household contributions. That was it. No alimony. The judge's voice cut through the courtroom like a gavel-shaped laser. Mrs. Mallory, adultery has consequences. Using marital funds to support an affair is a breach of fiduciary duty. You made your choices. This court will not reward them. Bang. Case closed. Monica slumped into her chair, sobbing as though someone had just declared the end of the world. Sophie leaned down, whispered something sharp into her ear, and then shot me that same glare like I personally orchestrated the apocalypse. I didn't flinch. I didn't even sigh. I walked out of that courtroom with my head high, like I was on a catwalk rather than a courthouse hallway. I had taken their game, swallowed every lie, every accusation, every Oscar-worthy fake tear, and I still came out on top. I let myself savor it for a moment. This wasn't just a win. This was proof. Proof that I wasn't the unstable one. Proof I wasn't the monster they tried to paint me as. Proof I was still standing while they were the ones unraveling in full dramatic glory. And I wasn't done yet. The divorce might have been settled, but the fallout was only getting started. As soon as we stepped out of the courthouse, Sophie came storming after me like a tiny hurricane with a freshman drama major's flair. She didn't even give me a second to breathe. "You ruined her life," she snapped, voice shaking but loud enough for anyone on the block to hear. "You embarrassed her in there. You could have just let her have something, but no, you had to take everything." I folded my arms, calm as ever, and said, "No, Sophie. She ruined her own life. She cheated. She lied. She drained our money. All I did was show the judge the truth. Don't blame me because you don't like how it played out." Her arms crossed, glare sharper than a laser cutter. "You're heartless. She gave you years of her life, and you threw her away." I couldn't help but laugh, low and sarcastic. "She threw herself away in my bed with another man. And you? You helped her. Don't think I didn't hear every word you said in that courtroom." Her face turned crimson. She opened her mouth, probably to argue, but the words got stuck somewhere between indignation and disbelief. She stomped back toward Monica, muttering something about how I wasn't the father she thought I was. Fine. If she wanted to rewrite history, she could live with the new script, just like her mother. That night, sitting alone at the hotel desk with a stack of bills in front of me, I let out a long, bitter laugh that probably echoed off the sterile walls like some villain monologue in a bad movie. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting cruel shadows across the receipts and credit card statements, turning them into a tiny gallery of betrayal. I thought about Sophie storming after me earlier, chest puffed out like she was leading a revolution in the courtyard, and Monica wailing into tissues like she was rehearsing for daytime TV's latest tragic heroine. I made a decision, sharp and final. Sophie had chosen her side. She lied in court, backed her mother's little theater of ruin, and tried to bury me under a mountain of financial nonsense. There was no reason I should keep paying her tuition, her rent, or her credit card bills. She wasn't a child anymore. She was 20, old enough to make her own disastrous decisions. And if her choice was to side with her mother, well, let her enjoy the crash landing. Like mother, like daughter. The next day, I made a few calls that felt strangely satisfying. First, the college cut off my direct payments. Then the bank removed her from my card. Done. Quick, clean, final. I knew it wouldn't take long for her to notice. And sure enough, 4 days later, the phone rang. Her voice, tight and trying to sound calm, but full of panic, rattled through the receiver. "Dad, my tuition payment didn't go through. The office says I'm going to get dropped from classes if it isn't covered in 3 weeks. What's going on? What did you do?" I leaned back, my voice as even and icy as I could manage. "What's going on? Let me tell you what's going on and what I did. I canceled all your college payments. Removed you from all cards. That's what I did. I am not your wallet anymore. You wanted to stand with your mother, then stand with her all the way. Let her pay your bills." Her pitch shot up an octave. "She doesn't have the money. You know she doesn't. You can't just cut me off. I'll have to drop out." I smirked, letting the corner of my mouth twitch. "I don't care if you drop out. You want to study? Then get a job like everyone else. You think you're special? Thousands of college kids work their way through school. You'll survive." A long, tense silence followed. Just the sound of her heavy, frustrated breathing. Finally, she hissed, "I can't believe you'd do this to your own daughter." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. "No, Sophie. I can't believe my own daughter stood in court and lied under oath just to help her mom rob me. Actions have consequences. You made your choice. I made mine." Click. She hung up on me. For the first time in months, I felt a strange kind of peace. Not the warm, fuzzy kind you see in commercials. Not happy, just clear. Done. I was done funding people who'd stabbed me in the back and then smiled while doing it. Once I finally got back into my house, that clarity turned into full-on serenity. No Monica nagging from the kitchen. No Sophie stomping around like she owned the place, slamming doors like she was auditioning for a Broadway musical. No fake smiles that screamed, "I'm fine, Dad. Don't worry, nothing's wrong." Just me, my quiet, my space, the one I'd spent years building. I could eat whatever I wanted, watch whatever I wanted, leave my boots in the hallway like a middle finger to etiquette. My house actually felt like mine again. Meanwhile, word on the street was that Monica was spiraling. Rumor had it she was applying for apartments, but her credit was garbage. Nobody wanted to take her. Most landlords want first month, last month, and a security deposit up front. Monica didn't have that kind of money. Not after blowing thousands on Brandon and losing in court. So, She stayed with her sister, and let me tell you, her sister's husband wasn't having it. I got a call from him one night. The man never liked me much, but he respected me enough to be blunt. She's a disaster, he said. I've had her under my roof for a month, and I'm about done. She doesn't clean. She doesn't cook. She just sits on her phone all day. And Sophie comes over like it's a damn reunion. I don't know how you lived with that. I chuckled. Careful. If you let her, she'll never leave. Good luck, he sighed heavily. Don't wish that on me. I hung up, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. Because here's the truth, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. I spent nearly 2 decades bending over backward for Monica, giving her everything she wanted, making life so easy it practically came with a pink bow. And what did I get in return? Cheating in my own bed. Not subtle, not secretive, just right there. Sophie? I put her through school, handed her every chance at a future on a silver platter, and she repaid me by standing in court, doing her best impression of a courtroom drama villain, trying to convince everyone I was some kind of abuser. So no, I wasn't losing sleep cutting them off. I wasn't lying awake worrying about whether Monica's sister's husband got fed up with her freeloading. That wasn't my circus. Those weren't my monkeys anymore. For the first time in a long time, I was living for me, and I planned on keeping it that way. Fast forward 3 years. Life had gone quiet, and honestly, I liked it. I worked. I came home to my house. I tinkered with things around the place. I kept to myself. No drama, no fights, no phones blowing up with guilt trips. Just peace. Sweet, glorious peace. Of course, peace wasn't the memo Monica and Sophie got. That much was obvious the moment words started trickling through the family grapevine. Sophie had gotten married to Logan, some college boyfriend she'd been on and off with since freshman year. And me? Naturally, I wasn't invited. I found out through my brother, who found out through a cousin, because of course it had to be 3 degrees removed. Small wedding. Fancy, my brother said. Really classy, they say. And you went? I asked, half expecting a live feed. Nope. Heard from a friend of the groom, he said, rolling his eyes. Apparently Logan's side had a few people there who kept their ears open. So Monica was footing the bill, I said. The original disaster, he said, smirking. Borrowed money left and right just to look like the doting mother who could still host a grand wedding. I just shook my head when I heard that. Monica always cared more about appearances than actual stability. Instead of paying off debts, she was splurging on centerpieces and a rented ballroom. Typical. I remember thinking about Logan back then. Actually made me think he was decent. Kid came from a good family, studied accounting, seemed level-headed. In another world, if Sophie hadn't chosen her mother's path, maybe I would have been proud to call him my son-in-law. But Sophie, of course, was her mother's daughter through and through. It started as whispers, some guy she'd been meeting for work dinners, someone a little too generous with gifts. I didn't pay much attention at first. Then the whole thing blew up. Turns out Sophie wasn't just having work dinners. She was having an affair with her boss. Married man, early 40s, 2 kids at home. And the kicker? She met him through Monica's job. Monica had finally landed a position at a small firm, and Sophie would swing by sometimes. That's where she got introduced. And like clockwork, she repeated her mother's greatest hits. Flirty texts, secret hotels, expensive dinners charged to joint accounts. How it came out was almost poetic. The guy's wife found the texts on his phone, screenshots, receipts, the whole embarrassing buffet. She confronted him. He confessed, and instead of keeping it quiet, she went straight to Logan, sent him the whole package. Logan didn't take it calmly. From what I heard, he packed up her things in trash bags and tossed them into the parking lot of their apartment. When she came crying, he threw her wedding ring at her face. Within a week, he'd shut down their joint account and started the lease termination. Marriage over just like that. When my brother told me, I actually laughed. Not because I was happy she was hurting, but because the irony was delicious. Monica cheats on me with some clown, wrecks our family, and 3 years later, Sophie pulls the exact same stunt with her husband. Like mother, like daughter. Evolution at its finest. It didn't take long before my phone started blowing up. Sophie. First call, straight to voicemail. Second call, voicemail again. By the third, I figured I might as well answer and see what drama she was serving this time. Her voice was cracked, trembling like a kid caught sneaking cookies. Dad, please. I don't know what to do. Logan kicked me out, took all the money. I can't pay rent. I can't pay my car. I need help. I let it hang for a second just to savor it, her panic filling the line like a fog machine at a horror show. Then I asked calmly, surgically precise, "Are you calling to apologize for lying about me in court?" She stuttered. "Dad, this isn't the same. I was protecting Mom. You don't understand." I cut her off. "No, Sophie, that's an excuse. Are you ready to admit you lied? Yes or no?" Silence, then a broken whisper. "I can't. I was doing what I thought was right." "Then you've got your answer," I said, voice even, sharp. "You're an adult. Figure it out. Get a job. Get 3 jobs. I don't care, but don't expect me to clean up your mess." She started crying, begging, practically wailing into the phone, telling me she couldn't afford a lawyer, that she was scared of being evicted, that she'd learned her lesson. And all I heard was the familiar echo of her mother's mantra choices dressed up as accidents. I told her flat out, "Call me when you're ready to admit the truth. Until then, don't waste my time." Then I hung up. I won't lie, part of me felt cold afterward, like I'd shoved the last ice cube in existence down my own spine. But another part felt something rarer, relief. For the first time, Sophie was staring the real world square in the face without my safety net. She had thought siding with her mother was some golden ticket. Now she was seeing the full itinerary: motel rooms, dead, a marriage collapsing before it even had a chance to breathe. I didn't celebrate, didn't even smirk. Every lie, every betrayal, every courtroom stunt, it was catching up to them like karma with a vendetta. I didn't have to lift a finger. Monica was already circling the drain. Word got back to me through a cousin that her sister's husband had finally hit his limit. Tolerated her long enough eating his food, hogging the couch, running up the utilities. He told her to pack. She had nowhere else to go. So she ended up in one of those weekly motels, the kind where the carpets smell like mildew and the parking lot has more broken down cars than working ones. Perfect. It wasn't long before my phone lit up with her number. I answered, curious how far she'd sink this time. Her voice came through all shaky, trying desperately to sound pitiful. "Can we talk? It's about Sophie. She needs stability right now, and I can't give it to her. If you could just lend me money for a deposit and first month's rent on an apartment, it would help so much. For her sake." I laughed out loud, loud enough I'm sure the motel's mildew-scented walls trembled. "The only deposit you're getting from me," I said, voice dripping sarcasm, "is the one Brandon left all over my house." She gasped like I just slapped her through the phone. Then the waterworks kicked in. "You're cruel. You've changed. You used to care. You should be the bigger person. Forgiveness means forgiving." I cut in, calm as ever. "Yeah, but it doesn't mean financing your bad decisions. You made your bed. Sleep in it." She tried to argue, tried to spin it into some morality lecture about family and compassion. I let her sputter for a minute before I hung up, not wasting my night listening to her rewrite history again. That, of course, was just the warm-up. Sophie started blowing up my phone next. At first, it was the same routine. "Dad, please, just a little help." Then it escalated into full-on panic. "I'm behind on rent. I can't keep up. My car is about to get repossessed." She was working some low-wage retail job, barely scraping together enough for food and gas. I reminded her, like a kindly villain in a dark comedy, that she wasn't special, that her last name didn't come with an automatic safety net. She thought siding with her mother meant endless support. Now she was discovering that the net had holes big enough to fall straight through. The more desperate her calls became, the calmer I got. Not revenge, it was balance. She had played her part in trying to wreck me. Stood in court calling me a monster, testified against her own father, and now she was starting to learn that choices come with a price tag. One night, my phone buzzed again. Sophie's number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Her voice was quiet this time. Broken. "Dad, I'm sorry." I waited. No words, just the soft rhythm of her breathing over the line. Finally, I spoke, slow and deliberate. "Sorry for what?" "For what I said in court. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was protecting Mom." Her voice cracked, and I could hear the weight of years packed into that single confession. I thought I was doing the right thing. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling like it owed me answers. "That's not an apology, Sophie. That's an excuse. Big difference." She started crying, pleading, begging me not to hang up. I let her squeak a few sentences out before I ended the call. 18 years of raising her had drilled one lesson into me. Words without accountability are just noise. The very next week, I got a message on Facebook from a name I didn't expect. Logan. Hey, it read. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't see through them at first. I believed Sophie. I believed her mom. And I thought you were the bad guy, but after what she did to me, I get it now. I understand why you cut them off. You were right. I read that message twice. Not because I needed validation, but because it was almost hilarious. The guy they swore was Sophie's golden ticket, the husband who was supposed to deliver the life she thought she deserved, was now basically waving the white flag in my corner. That right there was closure money can't buy. So here I am, 3 years later, living in the same house my grandfather gave me. No Monica, no Sophie, no constant lies, no guilt trips, no courtroom games. I eat what I want. I sleep when I want. I watch whatever the hell I want on TV. And if I feel like leaving my boots in the middle of the living room, well, they stay there. A neighbor once peeked over the fence and said, "Don't you miss, family chaos?" I smiled and shrugged. Chaos? No, I prefer quiet. And if I miss it, I'll just watch daytime soap operas instead. They give the same drama with better acting. People call me harsh. You should forgive, they said. You should help them back on their feet, another advised, like I was some philanthropic father deity. I laughed at that. Help them? Really? They didn't stumble. They didn't slip. Monica jumped straight into another man's arms while hiding in my bedroom. Sophie jumped straight into a courtroom, pretending I was a monster. They jumped, and now they expect me to break their fall, catch them like some human trampoline of consequences. I shook my head, muttering to the empty room. Not happening. I'm done being their safety net. 3 weeks later, I was in Bali, sun blazing, feet in the sand, umbrella drink in hand, and a parasail hovering above me, because why not? I posted the obligatory Facebook photos. Beach shots, parachute selfies, me grinning like life finally made sense. Of course, the post didn't go unnoticed. Monica tried her usual act, typing out something about family and forgiveness. Sophie chimed in, too all heartfelt nonsense about healing and moving forward. I didn't bother responding. Why ruin a perfect sunset with their whining? That's when the universe, or more accurately, our mutual friends, decided to have some fun. Comments started flying in. Ruthless and hilarious. Cheated on good husbands. Now crying in Bali's news feed. Priceless. Family and forgiveness? Maybe start with honesty first or a conscience. Either works. Should I bring popcorn, or are we just watching the drama unfold? Oh wow, look at you two trying to be the victims. Meanwhile, 2 husbands left standing. Amazing how karma works. Pro tip, money spent on affairs doesn't come back. Neither does dignity. Bali looks nice, Jason, but it tastes even better when you're sipping cocktails while they figure out rent. I scrolled through, laughing harder than I had in months. Monica and Sophie were trying, really, but their attempts at sympathy were getting buried under truth bombs served cold by our friends. It was brutal, public, and utterly satisfying. They were trying really hard, but the internet wasn't buying it. And honestly, neither was I. Their reputations, like their marriages, were in pieces. And I was just there, sipping a cocktail, watching karma do its work. That's the end of the story. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching.